Hey everybody, how's it going? Mike from the Focus Garage here, and in today's video we are going to be talking about a little comparison between my 2009 FZ1, Anders 2014 Yamaha R1, and my friend's Dave, his brand new purchase to him, his 2019 MT-10. Now, all these thoughts are kind of stemming from this little trip that we did last weekend. We did a 350 to 400 mile ride to the Galena, Illinois area. There was also some riding in Iowa that took us into Dubuque and even into Wisconsin a little bit. So we did hit 3 states all in one day. So anybody that wants to tell you that these bikes can't do distance riding, their bikes obviously aren't set up properly, or they're just not tough enough to be able to sit on a motorcycle seat for that long of a time. Now, as you can see right here in these first early clips, we're chugging along in traffic. I want to show you guys that obviously these bikes can do curved roads, they can do highway, they can do city streets. If you are riding a inline 4-cylinder motorcycle, though, be prepared for the heat unless you have a lower degree thermostat or your fans kick on earlier or anything like that. When you're riding these larger displacement bikes in the heat, you are going to realize that they certainly get toasty. I know Anders and Dave's bikes got up into the 220 degrees. My bike has that tune with the fans to go on, I think at 180, so my bike wouldn't get as hot as quickly. But if you sat, at stoplights or in stop and go traffic or anything like that, you would notice the bikes do start to get toasty after a while. So that's just one thing we kind of noticed, right out of the bat there, which, not too big of a deal. You expect that kind of stuff there. You're riding an air-cooled motorcycle or something like that, you would notice it too, but smaller displacement bikes might not suffer from that same type of heat. Most of this that you're going to be seeing here is just different little back roads and side roads that we did. You guys can kind of just enjoy the beautiful scenery of Illinois and that van coming over the line there. But the beautiful scenery of Illinois that a lot of people don't even know exists. This whole area out by Galena, everybody likes to say it was one of the only areas in Illinois that wasn't kind of wiped out by a glacier here. Like the whole state is flat except for this little area that kind of reminds some people of, out west or kind of more rolling meadows and prairies and things like that. So enjoy the scenery. It's definitely some beautiful roads here. So later on in this video, you're going to see we do have 2 little pulls here where I line up against Anders R1 and I do line up against Dave's motorcycle as well, strictly on a closed course in Mexico, but we do like to kind of see how that pulls away there. So to kind of help you narrow into your decision here, it's really going to depend what you're looking for with your particular bike and what your budget is. Now, if you do have something that, you want to take to the track on a regular basis, it's going to make the most sense to go with something like Anders R1. The performance that you're getting on that bike is a no holds barred type of thing. That's the kind of motorcycle that you go ahead and you just hop on it, you take it to the track, and you put down the absolute best time you can. This bike's going to have just obviously everything engineered for more of a trackway. If you're looking to get something that you can also ride on the track but have a little bit more comfort and convenience on the street, you're probably going to want to look at the MT-10. That bike is going to have a very similar engine to what's an Anders R1, but it's also going to have cruise control. It's going to have a more street-focused suspension. It's going to put you in a more comfortable position when you're riding that motorcycle as well. If you're looking for something a little bit more on a budget, that's where I'm going to recommend an FZ1. So you can find these FZ1s, as I've said in other videos, for, depending on what you're looking for, as cheap as $3,000, but I'd say closer to $4,000 to $4,500 buys you a nice one. If you're looking at anything like Anders' motorcycle, you're going to be spending $8,000 and up, or anything like Dave's motorcycle as well, you're probably again looking at $8,000 and up. So this bike, my FZ1, is about half the price, or even less depending on how you compare it to those motorcycles. Yes, it's going to be older, it's on an older chassis, but the nice thing is that if you're looking for these motorcycles, you do have the ability of having to find one that's already got mods done to it that bring it into the modern times here. You can find people that have put money into suspension on the bike. You can find people that have done minor bolt-ons to the bike. And as you guys are going to see here in the little pulls that we do versus one another, this bike is no slouch. So, spoiler alert, you'll see it in a few minutes here. This bike will actually take the R1 from lower speeds. I think it's due to this bike having the sprocket dropped 1 tooth in the front, and this bike making more torque down low. Obviously, top end, the R1, the Super Sport bike, is going to have more RPM, more gear to pass this. And then when I do line up with the MT-10, Again, this bike is a full bolt-on bike versus a totally stock MT-10, so it's not saying anything here. But when you see that, again, this bike will actually stay in front of that motorcycle to the end of the pull. So that is something to kind of compare there and to look at if you're looking to kind of, play around with your friends and do some little friendly pulls and stuff like that. What's going to be important and what's not going to be important to you. Comfort, if I had to rate these bikes, from best to worst, I would say that my FZ1 actually comes in top because this bike's got an aftermarket seat on it and it's got a totally reworked front shocks and rear shock as well. Second place, I would definitely rate the MT-10. I know those are praised for being the only MT bike / FZ bike that really has a somewhat decent suspension on it. It is adjustable, very nice forks, very nice shock in the rear, so that is something to pay attention to there. And then obviously the R1 is going to be your least comfortable motorcycle since that is a track-focused bike. It's going to have the stiffest suspension, it's going to be harsh on bumpy roads, and even your body position is going to be kind of more cramped up in that sporty position. Now, the nice thing about the 2014 R1, which is also the same as the 2009 to 2014, it's all one generation there, is it's the most comfy R1 before they went to the more sporty side. Anything 2015 and up, if you sit on that bike and then you go sit on one of the previous generation, you'll notice that it's become much more aggressive over time here. So if you're really looking for something that's more comfortable, but you still want a super sport, you're going to want to go with Anders generation like you see on the right here, that 2009 to 2014 R1. Here's that pull I was talking about. You can see I got in front of him from the front, got a little bit of speed wobbles there, no steering stabilizer on the FZ1, and then he slingshots ahead. Next clip here, we got me lined up against the MT-10. So you can see we 3-beeped it, we went for it, and now there is no bike catching up. I'm consistently pulling away, keeping my distance, and at the end I'm maybe about a bike and a half ahead. Something I learned after doing a few pulls though is that this motorcycle actually, because it's tuned, has more RPM than I was giving it credit for. With the aftermarket tune on my FZ1, I think the stock redline is about 12,000 RPM on this bike, but with that tune, this bike can rev to about 12,300, 12,400, and by simply staying in the power a little bit longer, that really allowed me to kind of get in front and be where I need to be. So again, a little bit of RPM, the bike's making its power there. If you can manage to stay in that power band just a little bit longer, it's going to help you out through the pulls. The GoPro doing GoPro things here, I was really only able to get a solid 20-30 minutes in of recording, so I've just got some various clips here. We did fool around a little bit more. There was some cool scenery that I wasn't able to record just because I didn't bring any spare batteries with me, so you'll have to forgive me for that. And also, this is really my first shot at kind of giving a voiceover riding clip type of video, so let me know in the comments down below if you like the style of this, if this is something you'd like to see more of or not. Now, going back into that comparison there, one thing that none of these bikes are going to shine at is fuel mileage. I was absolutely blown away that my bike, which I thought did pretty bad on fuel originally, was actually the most fuel efficient of the whole bunch. At any given stop, when we were filling up every 80 to 100 miles. I was putting the least amount of gas in my bike compared to Ander and Dave. They were putting anywhere from a half gallon to almost a full gallon more than me, depending on how many miles that we've traveled into their bikes. So I'd probably put them around the 30 miles per gallon range when we were doing the longer cruising sections, to where I was more in like 34-ish range. They've also said that they've seen higher MPGs with their bike, but there was a lot of curvy back roads and playing around on this trip to where we definitely weren't going for peak mileage here. So something to consider. None of these bikes shine at MPG, but in this particular scenario, the good old trusty FZ1 had the best observed MPG that we were seeing. Another thing to point out is all these bikes are chain driven, so you're going to have that same chain adjustment and maintenance interval on all three of these bikes. There's no belt, there's no shaft drive here, so if you've driven a chain driven bike before, that's something you'll have to keep up on and maintain on with your cleaning, lubricating, and adjusting of the chain. Looks, it's going to be one of those things where it's very, very beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I do think my bike has aged well. However, the looks and beauty of this are absolutely nothing compared to Anders super sport sleek look, or even Dave's kind of new looking I don't even know what style of design you'd want to call that, you know, the dark side of Japan styling there. That'd be my biggest takeaway on the MT-10, is that I'm not sure if I'm the biggest fan of that kind of bumblebee style looking dual projector headlight. I do think the MT-09 pulls it off a little bit better. It's a little bit overly aggressive for me on the MT-10 there, but again, something that's up to you. One area where the MT-10 shines over these other two motorcycles is if you are getting a 2018 and newer, it's going to come standard with a quick shifter, which is an awesome thing to have on a motorcycle. Yes, you can install it on the FZ1 in the aftermarket. Yes, you can install it on the R1 in the aftermarket, but having something that comes from the factory is just going to work nicely. You don't have to worry about any kind of splicing or reprogramming or anything like that. It's going to be just set up to go. You know, you can use it anytime you're shifting up, although everybody will tell you that it works better at higher RPMs and with more throttle input rather than just cruising around. But still, something to look for there, absolutely, for sure, if that's important to you. But what I really want to kind of give you as my main takeaway here is you can't go wrong with any of these three bikes. Depending on your budget and your intended purpose with the motorcycle, they're all going to be a fit in some way, shape, or form. Yes, if you want a track bike, you're going to buy an R1. But if you want to do something where you can go out and do the kind of riding that you're seeing in this video here, where we're just kind of out on country roads, you know, cruising around, you know, you're going to encounter some city traffic, or you want to run to the store, things like that, you can't go wrong with any of these bikes. You're probably going to be better off with like an FZ1 or an MT-10, just because it's a little bit more comfortable than that R1. That R1 will beat you up over time just because of the overall position that you're sitting in. We all kind of did the good old switcheroo with these bikes. We all took turns on each other's motorcycles throughout this trip, so that's kind of where this insight is coming from as well. I did spend some of this trip on the R1. I also spent some of this trip on the MT-10, just to see what those bikes feel like and to see how it compares. Now, the funny thing about this all, obviously, is there are a ton of Inline-4 bikes you can go out there and buy. This particular video is focused on the Yamaha stuff, and they all have a little bit different of an engine. Both the R1 and the MT-10 are going to be seeing, you know, the Yamaha cross-plane crank engine. However, they are tuned a little bit differently. The internals are a little bit different, and they're making different power and torque numbers. The FZ1 is using the 2004 to 2006 Yamaha R1 engine, and I believe it's even using that chassis as well. So it's using the older style Inline-4, the non-cross-plane crank engine. Still a great motor, and the cool thing about all of these engines, as with most Yamahas, is that they are very, very reliable. So if you're looking to just get on a bike and ride and not have to worry about finicky electronics or oil leaks or hot start problems or cylinders blowing up on you or anything like that, you can't go wrong with these Yamahas on that either. These bikes are all very trusted, tried and true mechanically. I know people are going to kind of push back and say, well, the MT-10 is a newer motorcycle, but it was also the FZ10 before that, and it had been out for a while. So, you know, you can see that these R1s have been around for a while, and especially these FZ1s, they've been around for a while as well. These bikes have been out, and they've kind of withstood the test of time, and they've proven to be pretty reliable. So if that's important to you, definitely look at these versus some of the other you know, manufacturers out there that are making motorcycles. But with all that being said, yes, I love my FZ1. I don't think it's going to be going anywhere. I don't have the sudden urge or need to go out and purchase a R1 or an FZ10 or an MT-10 or anything like that. Will I probably add to my collection? Yes. You know me, I have vehicular ADD, whether it comes to cars or bikes, and I'm always wanting to expand my selection. But we'll see what the future brings. Drop your thoughts in the comments down below, and I will catch you guys in the next video.